Alright, this clip of JD Vance pissed me off for a reason that is somewhat personal. So I want to take this opportunity to highlight the difference in leadership between somebody like JD Vance, somebody like Donald Trump, versus Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Because when faced with adversity, JD Vance takes the stage and makes everything worse. He face plants and offends many people, and when faced with the exact same situation, the exact same challenge, Vice President Kamala Harris not only thrives, but she excels. She is at her best because she's empathetic and strong at the same time. And I have all of this on video. I want to break it all down for you guys. Let's not waste any time. I hope everyone's having a great Saturday, and make sure you leave a like on the video below. So, to start off, I want to break down this clip of Harris Senior Advisor Ian Sams going on Fox News and injecting facts into the feeds of millions of Americans across the country who oftentimes don't hear the truth. He explains how 88 CEOs came out and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris when Donald Trump couldn't do that.
The vice president's sharing her message. I think in the last couple days, you've seen a lot on the economy. You saw President Trump speaking at the New York Economic Club. You saw Vice President Harris speaking in New Hampshire. And a very different choice for the American people between President Trump, who wants to cut taxes for those at the very top and big corporations, and Vice President Harris, who has a plan to jumpstart small business growth. 25 million small businesses in her first term is her goal, by giving them the resources to get off the ground. This comes on top of her middle-class tax cut that she's running on and campaigning on for the country. And so in the coming days, I think you'll hear us talk a lot more about our economic vision. Just this morning, 88 top CEOs, former CEOs from across the country, business leaders, companies like Ford, Starbucks, Pepsi, Lyft, these are real American companies, came out and endorsed Vice President Harris, said she'd be great for the business community. Donald Trump's a former CEO himself. I'm not sure why the CEOs don't like him so much, but suddenly this morning they're coming on board because I think they see the difference in the...
Obviously, Fox News is going to try to pivot, but let me just say, first of all, I love seeing Democrats go on Fox News and communicate effectively. I think that's one of the strongest things we can do. When people like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom or Ian Sams from the Kamala Harris campaign go and inject this truth into the homes of Fox News viewers, that is very valuable, because at the end of the day, we do live in a democracy where we can persuade minds and we don't get arrested like we would in Russia. Also, I think part of the reason CEOs don't like Donald Trump is because in order to build a successful company, oftentimes you need to show good leadership and be able to recognize talent and good leadership in others, and they can recognize that Donald Trump is not a good leader. Actually, he's an abysmal leader. So, we have a few clips of JD Vance. This isn't the one that made me especially mad, but I do want to play this first. Vance says that they are the ticket for strong women.
Kamala Harris ought to be ashamed of herself, and if you're an independent, a Democrat, or a Republican voter, I just ask you, look at the real record, look at the real context, and what you'd find, I think, is that Donald Trump and I are the only ticket for strong women and strong families in this country.
Okay, so I'm going to point out the obvious. Vice President Kamala Harris is the strong woman right now. She is like the woman who worked her way to this position, but even if we just take a step back, JD Vance is really claiming that the ticket with the man who thinks that childless cat ladies need to know their place, need to stay home, and that women probably should not have equality in the workforce. I mean, JD Vance definitely thinks that women should gravitate towards being homemakers and forfeit their career to help build a family. He has said stuff along that lines many times. So, a strong woman is somebody who would choose to enter the workforce, get an education, choose to do whatever they want, or a strong woman is somebody who chooses to stay home when they had the option to do what they want. JD Vance doesn't want people to have that choice, so everything he says is inherently contradictory, just like how he gave an interview recently, again, where he talks about IVF and basically flip-flops on his position. Just listen to this.
What about changing your mind on abortion and the Heritage Foundation, the 2017 project, the report that you wrote the introductory? You changed your mind on those two things. What made you change your mind?
Well, what
distance yourself from Project 2025 and then abortion, the national abortion. What made you change your mind on those things? Distance yourself.
In what way have I changed my mind from what I wrote in 2017?
I'll explain exactly how JD Vance has gone through quite an evolution. Back in 2015, he was a never Trumper. He described himself as a never Trump guy. Then, throughout the Trump era, he got increasingly extreme. He didn't know he would become politically popular later, so he signed off on a bunch of documents, on a bunch of crazy stuff that really showed his true feelings on family. So from 2017 to, let's say, 2021, 2022, we have all of these clips, all of these insane clips that keep being being unearthed of JD Vance saying stuff about childless cat ladies, saying the most extreme stuff, and now that he's back on the campaign trail, he's kind of getting cold feet. We know how he really feels, but optically, outwardly, he's getting cold feet, and now he's saying, oh, I don't know, I don't support this, I don't support that. Let's move on to this clip from JD Vance that really pissed me off. And the reason it pissed me off is because of just the stark difference in the way that VP Kamala Harris reacts to the situation, and I'll explain after this clip.
Now look, the Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do. She says, look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door we've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to. And again, as a parent, do I want my kid's school to have additional security? No, of course I don't.
I think the better argument is to remove the means for that psycho to commit that crime in the first place. And let me say, I am pro Second Amendment. I think Americans should have the right to have guns, but people who have mental issues should not have the right to have high-powered rifles. Time and time again, we see cases where somebody calls in, they say, I have actual schizophrenia, blah, 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 and then they end up doing a shooting. This happened in Maine, I believe, last year, or maybe that was earlier this year that happened in Maine, and it's just common sense. It's absolute common sense, but JD Vance gets on stage and says that school shootings are just a fact of life when they don't have to be. They aren't a fact of life in other developed countries. Even if you look at the statistics of shootings per capita, America's shootings far outweigh most other countries, and a lot of ours happen in schools. These mass shootings are absolutely wild, and part of the reason this pisses me off is because when we go to this Vice President Kamala Harris clip, she talks about how she's on a college tour recently, and in that college tour, when she asked those students how many of them have had to go through shooting drills, she said everybody in the room raises their hands, and we've had to go through shooting drills throughout my entire life. Throughout my entire experience in middle school and high school, we did shooting drills every single year like it was just a routine part of it, and I never really thought about how twisted it is until I'm past high school now. I'm in college, and I'm just thinking about it's insane. But listen to Vice President Kamala Harris almost tear up talking about this same topic.
I mean, you know, at the last year, I started a college tour. And I traveled our country meeting with our young leaders, right? And so it was college-age young leaders. So I did trade schools, colleges, universities, community colleges. By the way, I love Gen Z. I just love Gen Z. Right? But I'll tell you, one of the things that I asked every time I went to the auditorium, and it would be filled with these young leaders, students, and I'd ask them, raise your hand if at any point between kindergarten and 12th grade you had to endure an active shooter drill. And for the young leaders who are here who are raising their hand, I'm telling you, every time the auditorium was packed and almost every hand went up. You know, a lot of us, I'll speak about myself, you know, we had, well, I grew up in California, earthquake drills, we had fire drills, but our kids are sitting in a classroom where they should be fulfilling their God-given potential, and some part of their big, beautiful brain is concerned about a shooter busting through the door of the classroom.
It is true, and it is wacky. I always remember, I think in elementary school, after a shooting happened in 2011, I believe it was Sandy Hook, we had to keep all of the classroom doors locked throughout the rest of elementary school, which is just wild. It was a weird rule, and thinking back, it's like, why are we locking down the school every single day, day in and day out?